Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Perfect RIA podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Jarvis, and today we have a special guest joining us from the other side of the pond. Well, I guess let me say the other side of the pond for me. Our listeners are now all over the world, so it may, in fact, as a listener, be on your side of the pond. But we have with us Amyr Rocha Lima, who is a financial advisor in the UK, who has done a lot of work with CISI, which I'm going to go speak at their conference in October. And Amyr, it's great to have you on the show today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Matthew. I really appreciate you inviting me. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you first and foremost for staying up late to be on the show. My team's schedules for what's convenient in my calendar, so I appreciate you adjusting time zones. But really excited today. Amyr, you and I were talking before we hit the record button about the importance of doing work. And you talked about that. In fact, share it with me what you mentioned as far as doing the work. Was it splitting wood and carrying water?
Absolutely, yeah. You know, Matt, I've been listening to you guys for a little while now. In fact, I probably first came across your work, as a lot of people I'm sure did, through the Kids' podcast, right?
Yeah.
And that sort of sparked something in me. But maybe at the time, I didn't have the full autonomy within the business I was in to be able to put in place some of the actions you mentioned. But nonetheless, never stopped doing the work. And I think everything I've heard from you and Micah and the team and your guests, of course, is just do the work, right? Stop the noise. Don't listen to this stuff that's out there, self-limiting beliefs, people that don't like you, or whatever it is. Just do the work and try to listen to people that are maybe a few miles ahead of you that have been doing that work. And so you can maybe avoid some potholes, learn from them, and try to sort of accelerate a bit your learning and your development and your business, your career, and everything else. It's all about doing the work. I love that you guys are all about that. And you have definitely a following here in the UK, and you're going to get to meet a bunch of these people live at the CISI conference. That's the CFP community here in the UK that we represent. And you'll see that there's a lot of people hungry to learn from others who are doing the work.
No, I love it. Well, and I love you shared before we hit the record button. And this is an important thing to remember. I think sometimes we get caught in this illusion of success, right? I'll do the work. I'll do surge meetings, I'll do whatever, and it will all be smooth sailing. And you've done a lot of work and you've hit some obstacles along the way, I think, which we all do, but those kind of get brushed. Like when we're up on stage and we talk, well, there was the good old days and there's today and it was smooth sailing. And you mentioned some of these obstacles you've run into and how you're viewing them as, hey, this is an opportunity for success and by no means a failure. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I'll talk about sort of the immediate professional aspect of what you've just mentioned, Matt. And then there's an opportunity maybe for us to help some folks maybe do some inner listening when it comes to these self-limiting beliefs that we all have.
Yeah,
right? But
please.
I've just spent effectively the last 5.5 years, so to speak, almost 6 years, I guess, working in a business where the goal was for me to buy the founding partners out, right? We were going to do an internal succession, like a management buyout. We had roughly agreed valuations and roughly agreed the way in which we're going to do that. But it came to a point where one of the partners sat down with me and said, hey, Amyr, pen is coming close to paper. And I'm really sorry, but we've decided to take another route, right? And that route will probably involve us selling the firm to someone else. And, between you and I, Matt, look, no hard feelings. And what I mean by that is that happens in business, right? Business,
it does,
that was a risk I knew I was taking along the way in that journey. And obviously they were taking the risk on me along the way in the journey. And frankly, it got to a point where I wouldn't want to work for one of these sort of consolidator companies that are buying other firms or whatever the crack is, right? What I wanted to do is own my own firm. That was the goal for sort of working through that succession plan anyway. So as you can expect from a financial planner, I have my own financial plan. So I've sat down with my wife and said, hey, Trish, we might have to tighten our belts here in a few areas, but this is the time for us to do it. Our kids are young. We can entertain them with dinner parties in our back garden. We don't need to go to the Maldives for them to be happy. Let's do this. And my wife is, my absolute hero. She said, look, now is the time. Let's do it. And then, great. Matt, something weird happens. Right? Something weird happens, which is you start going back into your network. You start communicating with people that have your sort of best interests at heart. And suddenly connections start happening that were there all the time, dormant, but they just didn't come out because you weren't doing the stuff, you weren't doing the work to make that stuff come from underneath the soil and sort of flourish, as it were. And that's exactly what happened, right? I got introduced to a veteran of our profession here in the UK, of the financial planning profession, a guy that has sold his business a while ago for a hefty sum. He obviously built an amazingly big business, and he said, hey, Amyr, let's do this together. And then, a little while later, I found a CFP who, him and his wife have built an amazing lifestyle business for themselves, small boutique financial planning practice. And he said, I'm looking for a guy like you to succeed me in this business, right? So now we're starting a new practice. We found a client bake from a great planner who's retiring and really cares about his clients and wants to do personal introductions to pass each one of those client families over to me. And suddenly, Matt, what I thought I was going to build somewhere else is now something I'm building, exactly as I planned to build it, which also brings up its own challenges, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But
of course,
a lot of learnings from you guys, a lot of learnings from the Perfect RIA podcast, and also from some of your guests who either I had already sort of tapped on at Twitter or whatever, or because of the podcast, I just said, hey, I'm this guy from the UK. I saw your podcast with Matt or with Micah, whatever it was.
Yeah.
You guys are talking about this. Like, how would you do it in this environment? And it's no surprise to you, right, Matt, that every one of them will come back to you. Like, they know you're not wasting the time. You're being super intentional with a question. You're asking for a limited amount of their knowledge specifically for something, and they'll go, yeah, no worries. Let me try to help. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, something I want to pull out of here for our listeners, and I'm sure they're all feeling it, is Amyr, you're so you're so excited and fired up about that, and it's so infectious. Even as we're sitting here talking, I'm thinking, I wonder how I can help Amyr along the way. Like, he's working so hard, and he's got such a great mindset. And to your point, right, you do that hard work, and you have that abundance mindset, and it still will not be smooth sailing, right? I mean, you're still going to have bumps on the road, but wow, the world just opens up for you.
Yeah, it is. And, I think this is a tip for folks that perhaps are mid-career like myself. So I've been a financial planner now for about 10 years. I've been in the financial services profession or industry for another 10 as a sort of a representative of asset management products
Sure.
variable annuities or whatever it was, working for big asset managers like AXA and MetLife and that sort of stuff. So I've been around the block a few times. I'm still not a veteran as such, but there's some context there. But these sort of mid-career guys and girls who are listening to this, learning from Matt, Micah, and the team and all the guests, Matt just nailed it. Do the work always. And when you ask for help, there's context. And if someone even dares to sort of Google your name to say, well, who's this dude with this weird name? And they just see a bit of context, they go, oh man, I'll help this guy. Yeah, sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because
that's what it's all about.
Oh, totally. Because people that are successful, right, they got there universally by just wicked hard work. And so when you see somebody else putting in that hard work, you just can't help but respect them and want to help them along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, there's something interesting in that I actually wanted to sort of play out with you
for
a bit. I'm sure a lot of folks that are listening to you that are sort of in my position will maybe think about this. And in fact, maybe some veterans who are trying to unwind a legacy business are probably thinking about this. So the first thing I did when I started building processes was think, well, Surge. And to think, how could I implement Surge? That makes so much sense to me. And I read everything I could about it, right? Then I reached out to Benjamin Brandt, who's, I know, a friend of the community.
Good friend of mine.
And I said, look, I know you've got a course. Should I do this course? And he said, Amyr, first listen to everything about Surge and the Perfect RIA podcast.
Yeah.
Like, do that first. And then if you feel you need more knowledge, then by all means do the course. So I did that. And then what came out, Matt, was more than whatever way you do it or Benjamin does it or whoever else does it. It's about intentionality.
100%. Yeah.
I said, this makes sense now. I've never been intentional with when I take client meetings, with when I do admin work. And now I need to run a business alongside that. I need to be intentional about this. So I opened up an Outlook calendar and I just started blocking out time intentionally. And then I reversed engineered that back to a business plan. In other words, if I have 200 meeting slots in a year and I already have 50 client families that I serve, do the other 150 slots allow me to prospect the number I need, my 1/n, as Nick Murray would say? Does it allow me to do enough of that to back into doubling this business in 3 years, as you guys advocate for all the time? And I think we're there. You know what I mean? So that's how I've backed into it. And it's interesting, though, there are blocks of time for deep work, consistent deep work, but there are also blocks of time for intense meeting schedules and the stuff that comes out of that as well. And it got me thinking, again, intentionality, right? You might cut it one way, fall surge, spring surge. I might do it sort of more consistent throughout the year. That is not the point. The point is be intentional. Like, even think about it. Even thinking about it makes you go, oh my God, man, I've never done this before. Why?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you would highlight that. And that was something that I didn't realize early on. At first, when we talked about Surge, I just like, here's how we run my practice, right? It was Micah who said, well, let's call this Surge meetings. And there's been a couple of people that have tried Surge that it didn't work for them. And I thought, well, how could it not work? It's worked so well. But it goes back, Amyr, to what you're saying. You have to be intentional, right? It's about being intentional about your time. It's not, as you pointed out, I mean, I do my meetings on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It's not the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's magical. But for me, having Mondays to prepare and Fridays to unwind, that works perfectly for my mind. For you, it may be something different, but I love that you drew that out. It's about being intentional.
Yeah, and I would say even the exercise itself, Matt, is already an eye-opener because it backs back into a business plan. And if it doesn't back into the business plan, well, you've got trouble. Because if you don't have enough slots to prospect and see prospects and do the second meeting and do the discovery meeting and then actually get them into ongoing planning, well, how on earth can you double the business in 3 years or whatever it is that your personal ambition is? It's really important. It's component parts of doing the work that back into the stuff that actually matters, which is having the business you want to have at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned doing that math backwards into your plan, right? I know I've been guilty even to this day of, I want to have this many clients. I want to make this much money. And then I just wish, I hope that really happens. But to your point, you've got to say, well, if I'm going to have this many clients, I mean, this many slots, I need this many prospecting attempts. Again, as Nick Murray would say, this many phone calls, this many no's, I need to hear this many no's, back the whole thing out.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's amazing.
Amyr, I'd be curious if you have any lessons that you would pass on to anyone else who is in a succession role, like you were working down, right? Are there things that you said, boy, I wish somebody would have told me this at the beginning of year one, not at the end of year 5? Because we have a lot of listeners that are in a similar, where let's loosely call that a junior advisor or a succession role, that they have sort of imagined how it will work. The succession person hasn't imagined how they're going to work. Maybe that's how it works or it doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I think there are lessons for both sides, right? The sort of senior person that's planning on selling,
Sure.
The more junior or mid-career person who's planning on buying. My advice, Matt, would be to try to be as open as possible along the way. And to be fair, to a large extent, myself and the previous business I was in, the partners there, we were very open with each other, figuring out valuations, figuring out the mechanism on which how could we afford this? Is it cash flowing, the payouts, or is it we need to raise money? Like really having decent conversations. But on top of all of that, I'm going to say this, get yourself in the position and just do the work in the background to be able to, if you need to, go and find a job. Right? Let's be honest here, right?
Yep.
I knew this risk from day one. I knew that at any point they could decide not to sell to me or to sell to someone else, which I wasn't interested in working for. And therefore, I needed to be in a position to say, you know what, if I need to, I'll just go back into the city of London and find a job, right? And what that means is education. Like, I'm sorry, but you need to put yourself in a place where when your CV is out there in the market, people are going, this is the dude or the dudette that I need to hire because they've got all of the building blocks. Table stake stuff, they've done it all off their own back, right? Oh, but Amyr, I've got a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old and the wife, and man, at night to do the CFP. Okay, then that's fine, but you're just not putting yourself in a position to be able to just walk into a job. So this is for me, Matt, a bit of an immigrant mindset, right? And a lot of your listeners will think that, right? I'm originally from the Midwest of Brazil, like I'm a Brazilian redneck.
Oh,
I came to London, started from absolute nothing, and just a weird name, no network. Just don't ignore that. You could be in London, England, or you could be in Birmingham, Alabama. It makes no difference, man. Just do the work and just don't listen to this stuff that people are telling you that tries to limit yourself. Your own mind plays a game that's against you, right? Do the work, be good at doing the work, show value, and inevitably, with some lag, people will start talking about you in a good way. They will refer you, they'll put you in touch with friends and family, and stuff starts happening. So for me, the first building block of that is education. I couldn't sit at a table with people around me and not feel that I earned my place in that table. So for me, that meant the table stakes qualification, CFP, get your CFP. For me, that's an aha moment when it came to planning. And then secondly, mingle and hang around with mentors that are going to help you actually take that CFP toolkit and implement it in a way that clients are going to say, wow, nobody's ever told me that way before. Or, wow, that's a great idea. And you haven't even started trying to sell me on anything. And you've already given me a great idea that's worth a bunch. I want to listen to this guy. It doesn't matter if you're young. It doesn't matter if you're tall, if you're short. It just doesn't matter. I'm sorry. It just doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
Get rid of that self-limiting belief. Get the table stakes stuff in. CFP, night school, I don't care. Get your CFP, then start mingling with people that are doing the work, that are a few miles or maybe many miles ahead of you, and just show them that you're worthy of being part of that community by doing the work, sharing it in public, getting it wrong, getting it right, helping someone that's slightly behind you. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And we're here. We're here having this chat.
For sure we are. And I want to draw out two things that you said. One is that you earn a seat at the table. And it's tempting to say, well, hey, I'm here, therefore I have a seat at the table. But to your point, earn it nights, weekends, holidays, whenever you earn that. The other thing that I want to highlight that you mentioned about is you were playing a game that you were going to win no matter what. It took me years to figure this one out, but I always want to play a game that no matter the outcome, I'm going to win. So you described, hey, my goal was to take over this firm, but no matter what, I'm going to be a better advisor. I'm going to have a better CV. I'm going to win this game no matter what. Sometimes we get too hung up on a single outcome. If it doesn't go if I don't get exactly 37 prospects into this thing, it was a failure. No, I want to win no matter what. So I don't know. I had to pull that out because I love that mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matt, I'll tell you what, for all the listeners out there, you know how I sort of come to realize things like that. Sometimes it's just taking a bit of time and looking internally, right? Look, there'll be listeners out there who know that they had a great parent, a mum or a dad, who unfortunately passed away unexpectedly and sort of died with their music still in them. Right? If we're financial planners, and we've heard these stories firsthand, or we've experienced them firsthand. So that backs into what you've just said. Like, you know what? Chill out a bit, man. If it didn't go your way, make sure that you're building your castle on solid stone so that you can go and pivot and find a job if you need to be able to sort of build up the savings to set up your own firm or whatever it is, or find an investor or whatever it is. Just make sure you're doing the work. You've got the qualifications you need to be able to go out there and say, hey, this has happened, all good, but this is what I want to do. Who's with me? And the world knows who you are. And when I say the world, it could be your town. It could be your town. It doesn't need to be the whole wide world. For sure, it doesn't.
I also, Amyr, want to highlight one other thing that you did throughout that process, and we mentioned this at the beginning. The reason that one of the reasons our paths crossed is because of the CISI conference, which is coming up shortly. You put a lot of work into that organization, right? So not only were you doing the hard work of your practice, the hard work of getting your CFP, of developing your expertise, you were also in the community, like really giving back to the advisory community, which I have to imagine opened or helped open some of these doors that you described.
A huge pivotal for that. And it only opens the doors because you do the work. I'm sorry, this phrase is going to be said like 50 million times in this show, but it's true, right? There's no way of pretending, well, you know what, I'm going to dabble with this and things are going to happen. No. And by the way, things might not happen either. And you just need to find joy in, you know what, but I'm part of something bigger than me. So what's this being part of something bigger than me, Matt? Well, for me, it's expanding the CFP community in the UK. Right? I myself was not a CFP once upon a time, and I was more of a product salesman rather than a financial planner. The CFP was my aha moment when it came to financial planning qualifications, and therefore I became extremely passionate about it because the people that got me to sit the exam and actually do all the work for it, they're extremely passionate about it. It's a great community, right? So my goal is, look, I just want to give back to this community in whichever way. That started at my local sort of London regional chapter, which then led into becoming part of the Financial Planning Committee for the UK, which then led to being elected the chair of the Financial Planning Committee in the UK. And then the CISI put me on their board, so to represent the financial planning community from the Institute's perspective, right? So all of this happens because you're doing the work along the way. How does that help? How does that back into personal ambitions or professional ambitions, right? I'm Amyr Rocha Lima, right? There's one of me. You Google this and whatever's there is there. Now, I am not going to ever control the Google algorithm, ever.
Sure.
But what I can do is do the work so that Google can't help but crawl through the work and bring that up to whoever searches my name. Be that a prospective client, be that a business partner or whatever. So I was always conscious of the fact that it's really easy to find out about Amyr Rocha Lima. Let me pump that algorithm with good work. One, because I want to, and I just want to do that work. And second, because that will help me, no doubt, because people will see, geez, this guy's involved in this and involved in that and wrote this article, wrote that article. He obviously is trustworthy. He obviously has something to lose. So I want to work with somebody who has something to lose. I don't want to work with somebody who, if I type in their name, I know nothing about them.
Yeah,
because we're in 2023, guys. I'm sorry, it's just a referral is still the best way of getting new business. But even that referral is Googling you just to get a feel for who's this dude or dudette that are going to be talking to in a minute, you know? So for me, that's what it's about. Give, 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 give. But give it intentionally in a way that obviously inevitably it helps you, but it only helps you if you're giving, actually really trying to add value to that community. So that's the crack with the CISI. Listeners can do this locally at their local FPA chapter or CFP board chapter, whatever the equivalent is in the States or in Canada or in Australia, whatever it is. You can just be part of something bigger than you. You'll meet people that are doing stuff a lot better than you. You get to listen and hear from them. You get to have a beer with them and just be able to chew the fat and, hey, how did you deal with that? You know, off the record type thing. Man, it's helping others and adding value has been amazing for me. And I must say, to be fair, Britain as a country has a reputation for that, right? If you see the way they ran the Olympics here, it was all with volunteers. I mean, the whole gig, Britain itself is a country that was pretty much made on the back of volunteering. It's incredible. So that inevitably, that sort of, you soak that in by just living here.
Amyr, let's pull on this thread just a little bit more. So let's say that we're an advisor listening and we're heading to our industry event, right? We're heading to the CISI conference, which you and I are going to both be at in October. And I remember going to conferences early in my career, and I remember standing in the back of the room or sitting in my corner, reading the Wall Street Journal, looking at my phone. So if it's your very first event, you don't know anybody there, right? Other than they can come seek you and I out, right? If you're at CISI, you come find myself, find Amyr, and we'll high five and we'll have a pint together. But what would you like? What's something really specific they could do? So they're at their chapter, their local meeting. They sit down. They don't know anybody. How do you get that? Like it seems easy for guys like you and I. Like, oh, we just go talk to everybody. Da 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 da. What's the first step?
Yeah, so for me, the first step is just show up, right? And there's 100%. A massive element of my career, which was show up, shut up, and listen, right? And then you're regularly there listening. And people take notice. They're like, that's interesting. That's a youngish guy who's just listening, right? Yeah. What's he all about, right? Once you've listened for a while, you sort of have given permission to start speaking. And that's not necessarily speaking on the stage, but that is just saying, hey, Matt, that session you did last week was awesome, man. And by the way, at my business, we're da, 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 da. And you take that conversation forward, right? That's already a little link there. And now you're still there, you're still listening, and you're making small interactions. You can't help but do that because Matt or Micah or Johnny or Jane, whoever it is that presented, would have said something of interest. Or if they didn't, don't pretend either. But if they did, just make sure you let them know. Do you know how great it is for people to just know that they've done a good job? Like, Matt, I know you hear this like a million times a day, you and Micah, like you guys adding value, you've changed my business. Still say it. Still say it. It's important for people. This is grueling work at times. You know, you're scheduling podcasts, scheduling client meetings, scheduling business coaching. Man, just show some appreciation. So just start by doing that, right? By doing that, that gives you a chance to just say, hey, how could I be part of this? Like, how could I add some value here? And I'm not saying necessarily become the treasurer of the chapter day one, right? But there's something you can do. And it might be that you have a great speaker that you can bring to the table because you met them at another conference or whatever it is. Or just use your imagination, figure it out. It's simple. Like, it's not rocket science and it's not expensive. Just put yourself forward and say, hey, I'm here to help. Now, not kidding. You do that enough. Then there are none of these chapters, local chapters, that have enough people doing stuff. All of them are looking, they're desperate for people who would give a couple of hours a month, 5 hours a month, whatever it is. And of course, within your own life plan, with your own professional plan, just try to add some of those hours to that chapter. See what you can do. Present at local primary schools, if that's the gig, on financial literacy or whatever it is, right? And then bring that information back. Put your hand up and say, hey, remember I volunteered for this? Well, last week I had a chance to go to the local state school and present on financial literacy to 16-year-olds. And man, I got these questions and that question. I think we should do more of that. Now, maybe we can get other firms in the state or whatever it is, wherever you live, to do this sort of stuff. Right now, you're starting to add value. You're starting to give hours in, and you now have a seat at the table. Now people are going, hey man, you know what? That's a young guy or girl right there. They're staying in their lane. They know what they know, and they also know what they don't know. But in their lane, man, they're helping us, and they're giving up their hours to be able to help the chapter grow and the CFP qualification or professional community grow. This is awesome. One thing leads to another. But when you see it, you're now the treasurer of that chapter, or you're the chair of that chapter. And then you're going to the national meeting or the statewide meeting. And the statewide meeting leads to a statewide role that takes you to the national meeting. And you're meeting other people that also are thinking like you. I want to give to something that's bigger than me because I fancy being part of something that's bigger than me. That's what, in the end of the day, you and I, Matt, we just want to be sub-paying members of great communities. right? We're doing the
100%.
work now, but at some point we want to just hand the baton, sit back, pay our fees, and learn from others and go, man, what a great conference. I'm just a tourist here. I just showed up for the conference and went home. Had nothing to do with organizing it or whatever it is, but you did the work to be able to hand the baton over to someone else. The bar is just that bit higher. Rock and roll, rock and roll.
Well, I love how tangible that advice is, right? Whoever's running that chapter, that organization, to your point, Amyr, they're always looking for a volunteer. They will be ecstatic if you say, hey, I'm totally new here. This is my first meeting. How can I help? They're going to love that. And then anybody who went out of their way to present at an event, with maybe 1 in a million exceptions, but anybody who's presenting there, they're going to be, to your point, they're going to be ecstatic that you enjoyed their presentation, and they're going to love to answer a couple of extra questions. Obviously, you're not going to dominate their whole afternoon, but these are easy people to go up to, right? They obviously care about the community because they went and spoke there. And again, anybody who's running it obviously cares about the community, or they wouldn't be there either.
That's it. And you know what, Matt? You do that enough, you do actually start gathering your own miles. And
yes,
when your own mileage starts sort of increasing, you suddenly go, well, I've got an angle on this. You know, for example, during the pandemic, I put an article out, which was 6 questions I ask every single prospective client. Not rocket science, but there was a lot of noise around how can we do this on Zoom, or how can, oh my God, my business in this. And I just said, hey, look, I'm just going to share what I do. I just ask 6 questions and I get my prospective retiree type client, which is what I deal with, over 50s, you know, wanting to save tax, wanting to retire earlier, wanting to invest smarter, whatever it is. And I get them just to think, okay, this dude is listening. No one stopped to ask me this. And you might think, wow, Amyr has got some amazing questions. Man, I'll link up the article with you afterwards for you to share.
Please.
Is basic stuff. Like, sit back and go, hey, Matt, what prompted you to contact the financial planner in the first place?
Yeah.
Shut up and listen. And really just shut up and listen. Yep. And they say something, and then you turn around to the missus maybe and you say, hey, Jane, do you have anything to add to what John said? Well, that's funny you should say that, Amyr, because for me, it's about do. And then you filter that back in. Okay, hey, how could we make great use of our time here in this meeting today? Well, actually, for this meeting, I'm do. Okay, well, that's great. Now, let me ask you something. What for you would be a great outcome in working with a financial planner? Dude, they've told you everything now. They've told you what prompted them. What was the thing that made them call a financial planner or ask their mate for a referral? Like, what do they want out of that meeting, that 1 hour today? And then what would be a great outcome? This is it. You've got A, B, and C. Now, if you have a service proposition that delivers to that, you can confidently say, we're a great fit. And let me show you why. That's it.
I mean, we could do an entire episode just on those questions, because they're really easy to skip over, right? It's really easy to launch into, let me tell you about my designations and our company and everything, which nobody cares about, by the way.
They can Google it.
They can Google it. It's over there. And as you mentioned, now I know everything that they're concerned about, which helps me get them as a client, but more importantly, because this always pays back around, it helps me actually deliver value in that meeting. If I think they're coming in because they want to retire, and really they come in, they say, actually, I just found out that our daughter has a special needs. Wait, that's what they want to talk about. That's what I want to talk about. And so, like you said, it's so critical, that open-ended question. I always say to Amyr, and again, it's about being intentional. Mine is always, hey, what questions or concerns brought you to my office today? I know it's intimidating to call a financial advisor. I know it's intimidating to be here. I totally get that. What questions and concerns brought you in today? It's the exact same question that you asked, right? It's on my words, yours is in your words.
That's it.
The same thing. And then, like you said, zip it and just listen, and you'll have the whole thing.
Yeah, and nobody listens to anybody anymore, Matt. You know, when these people feel like somebody's listening to them without the intention of selling them a product, because I'm charging for a financial plan. You're already paying me for the plan. I don't need to get paid by selling you something, right? It's just a different game, man. And once you feel that, like you really feel that, nobody can stop you, because next time you know that all you need to do is tell the truth and let the chips fall where they may. And then you need to find your 1 over N. How many do I need to do of these so that one goes, I want one of those. Like, I want one of those. How can we work together? Right? And then rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Do the work. That's it.
So true.
And Matt, I'm figuring this out now on my own, as in I'm now setting up a business with a business partner and a great mentor, by the way. I'm super proud to be working together with him. But I'm the one doing the work. And he's all about doing the work as well. So you'd love to meet him, by the way. But it's all about now, okay, now go and do it. And that's reps. You just have to go and do it, right? And that's the thing. I've seen this in an employed role, and I've seen it work wonders, as in you're not in the business of convincing anyone of anything. You're there to see enough people so that a number of them say yes, because what you offer is a great fit. It delivers massive value to them. Rinse and repeat. that's it. Just keep on doing it. And we do amazing work, man. And, listening to guys like you, Micah, and the guests, reading Nick Murray, reading the likes of Joe Jordan, these guys, you guys have a way of telling us, of reminding us the good we do. You cannot forget this, man. That we do massive good. We listen to people in a way that no other professional does. We help people in a way that an accountant is not interested in helping, a solicitor isn't, or a lawyer isn't helping people. We are unique in the way we deliver dignity, independence, peace of mind. Come on, man. Come on. We have to believe that, because if you do, you don't need to convince people of it. You know it.
No.
It's in you.
100%. Oh, I mean, we're going to have to do a second episode. This is so much fun. We can keep going for hours. Let's talk about a couple of action items that our listeners can take, right? So we said, hey, do the work, but a specific action item that comes to mind for me is find a community in our industry that you can not just belong to, but that you can really help move forward. So that could be the CISI, which again, Amyr, you and I will be there this fall. It could be the FBA chapters. It could be whatever that is. Find that community. Don't just sit in the corner. Be active. Help move it forward. Amyr, what's another action item that comes to mind for you, for our listeners?
The other action point is that will help you actually achieve the next action point, which is stop the bad stories, stop the self-limiting belief. I don't care what your name is, where you're originally from, if your mum and dad are somebody or a nobody, if you're in a small town in the Midwest of America or in a fantastic town in South Africa or whatever, wherever you are, dude, this is just do the work. Just do the work. You're going to feel good about doing the work, right? And you're going to feel good about seeing the result of that work as well. So just do the work. Get your education sorted. If you're a financial planner, that means getting your CFP. Of course, after that, you can go into other weird and wonderful certifications. Fair play to you. Go for it. But get your basic stuff. Do the work. Let people typing in Amyr Rocha Lima or John Smith on Google, because by the way, if they type in John Smith, there's John Smith, the architect, John Smith, the plumber, John Smith, 3 states down that was put into jail for something. You want to be the John Smith CFP, do the work, and then you don't need to pay Google anything. It will just crawl through all those bits that you've been involved in. It will pull that up to the client and say, hey, this is the John Smith you're looking for, man. He seems like he's trustworthy.
I love it. The one last action item I would give is to, whether it's in the community or by Googling or wherever, find someone whose story resonates with yours and learn from them, right? So if you're hearing Amyr's story and you're saying, wow, this is me, like his story is the same as mine, then find Amyr, track him down, do what he does. If you hear my story and say, hey, Jarvis, that's what it is. For me, it was Tom Gal, rest in peace, right? I met Tom Gal. I'm like, wait, his story, I resonate that. That makes sense. I'm just going to do what they do. I'm going to do the work. That gives me the direct. Nick Murray, whoever it is, I'm going to do that work and I'm going to run and I'm going to run hard and there's going to be bumps along the road. Amyr, you articulated some of yours. There's going to be bumps. There's going to be head trash. You'll come out on top. Guaranteed. Absolutely guaranteed.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed. And we'll keep doing the work. That's for sure.
And we'll keep doing the work. Amyr, thank you so much for your time. I'm so fired up. Like I want to start calling clients like right now. As soon as we got this episode, I'm start calling clients just because I'm so fired up for our work. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you soon in the UK. For all of our listeners, until next time, happy planning.